At this point in my life, surfing's been my salvation as far as clearing my head and some place to be. Before I gave my life to the Lord, in the last video I was sharing with you guys how I kind of got to this point. At this point in my life, I'm gonna go back a little bit, BC, before I became a Christian. I'm gonna go back and basically at that point in my life, what's been going on is, a lot of bad stuff. I started looking towards surfing in the 80s. Everybody wanted to do it. Everybody was getting into the shortboard thing. And I'd gone down to Huntington Beach, went into Robert August's shop and down there, and they had Rockin' Figs and Jacks and all the different shops down there at the time. And I was just a kid, man. I was so intrigued with surfing. And I was probably 15 years old, 13 to 15-ish. And I've been skating every day of my life. That skating was my big thing, and went to Pipeline, and I skated at Pipeline and grew up with a bunch of the pros, a bunch of the gazillionaire skater guys that you guys have grown up with. I actually watched grow up skating, and it was pretty fun. But what ended up happening was I'd go down to this shop, and I went into Robert August. I'm like, man, how do I get to be a surfer? Like, what do you got to do? And the guy in there, this guy George, super cool dude. And I'm sorry if you guys don't want me using your names. You're not a real person anyway, so it's not your real name. But it's one of those things where I basically would go out there, and at a young age I started wanting to get into this stuff. I wanted to learn how to surf. I wanted to get my thing done. And I had gone in and I put a board on layaway, and I worked all summer for this board, man. I was so excited. I finally got the money for it, and I got down to the shop, hitchhiked down there. Didn't have a car, so I hitchhiked down there. I was planning on spending the weekend at the beach, just sleeping on the beach and stuff, and was gonna go just get barreled at the pier. I was so gonna be a pro surfer. And I got there, and Robert was in his shop, and I said, hey man, I'm here. And I was so excited because he was there, and he's a professional surfer. He was one of the Endless Summer guys, and just was my icon. All I wanted to do was be him. And he was there, so I was like, oh my gosh, it's you. And I told him, I said, man, my board's here, I'm here, I finally got the money. And he goes back and he starts looking for this board, and he spends like a half an hour, and he comes back, he's like, bro, I'm sorry, man, it's not here. And apparently it had gotten sold because they didn't think I was really coming in. I was a punk kid, and I didn't live at the beach. I lived an hour away, and they're like, yeah, they called me Valley, but they were sure that I wasn't going to be coming in and doing anything. So basically what ended up happening was I was heartbroken. He saw it on my face, and he goes, hey man, wait a minute, let me go do something for you. And he asked me what size it was, and I said, well, I think it was an 8 foot or 9 foot. I didn't know a lot about it. I just liked the color of the board. And at this time, everybody was transitioned to shortboards from the 70s and in the 80s. It was all about shortboards, and it was single fin, double fin, tri-fin, thrusters. We had all these names for boards, and I wanted a longboard, man, because that's what Robert did, and I wanted a longboard. I wanted to hang 10. I wanted to get barreled and all these things, and so I would focus on that. But he went in his back room, man, and he's like, yeah, it's nowhere to be found, but I got something for you. I got something I want to give you. Like, I have one you can buy for the same price. And so he goes up and he pulls down this red striped old white board, and it was an 8.6 single fin, had a fiberglass fin box, which most of them were glassed in at the time. Just started putting boxes on the boards, and it was a boxed fin, single fin, had a big blue fin on it. And I was like, man, what the heck, what's going on? Like, this isn't my board. But when he pulled that red and white board out, I loved it. It just had 2 stickers that said Robert August, but there was no numbers on it. It wasn't signed by him, so I was kind of bummed. I really wanted that signature in the board with when he built it and everything. And I said, well, there's no signature, like there's no number. What's going on with this board? And he goes, well, I built this board for myself. He goes, I don't number the boards that I build for myself. He goes, I built this board several years ago. I wrote it and I didn't like it, so I ended up putting it in the attic. He goes, it was too short for me because longboarding was 10 foot, 9 foot was aggressive. And he goes, it's one of the first boards that I ever put a fin box in. And he goes, I got it, I waxed it, I took it out, I didn't like it, and nobody's ever touched it since. It's been sitting in my attic. And I was like, dude, this board's yours. Like, Robert August wrote this, so I'm gonna buy it. So I gave him the money, and it was so cool because he came out and he's like, listen, dude, I'm gonna hook you up. He gave me the board, he gave me a blue leash so it matched my fin, and he gave me a board bag, and he comes out with the brand new, not beaver tail, Quicksilver wetsuit. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, dude, you're gonna need a wetsuit. And I had bought a beaver tail, you know, basically a diving suit. That's what we used at the time. But I bought a beaver tail, and he goes, nah, man, you can't surf in that. You're gonna get rubbed. He goes, the zippers are in the back now. And I was like, wow, okay, cool. And so he gave me my surfboard, gave me my wetsuit, gave me a handful of wax, gave me my leash, gave me a set of booties. And I was just like, oh man, I'm so stoked. I'm a surfer. Like, I'm a surfer. So I'm like, I sneak in, grab my bag, and I walk down to the beach, and I throw my suit on, and you know, it's summertime and I'm suiting up in a full suit. Hilarious. But you know, I would spend the next couple of years learning that surfing wasn't as easy as it looked. And I didn't teach, but nobody taught me, but it was my escape. It was where I went to find peace in my life. It gave me something, a mission. And surfing is a culture. It's got a language, it's got a dress code. One of the things that people don't understand is there's something about the ocean that's medicinal. It fixes you. It fixes your issues. A lot of people are like, man, surfers are so chill. I met a lot of dudes that were cold-blooded killers that you would never know because they were surfing. But in their normal life, they were ruthless. But surfing brought them to a place of peace where they could be a person and have friends. And I would spend the next 30 years surfing. It was my life. And I became Surfer Joe. I got friends that are pro surfers. I know pro bodyboarders. You know, I watched the sponge boards come out, and you know, then it became bodyboarding, and saw the first, you know, I actually was friends with people that guys would go, oh my gosh, you know that guy, but I wouldn't understand at that point in my life what surfing was gonna do for my future. And what would end up happening, man, is when I became a Christian, I was crying out to God, and I said, man, God, what am I gonna do? You know, Tiffany was off doing her thing. I was super bummed and lonely, and I needed to find something. So I still surfed every day. I'd go to the beach every day and surf that I could. And I was just so drawn to the ocean. And then one day I was praying, and God was just like, you need to go out, and you need to sit there, and you need to reach the people like you. And I was like, what? He's like, I got this idea to start a surfing ministry. And so what I would do is I would go down to the beach, and I'd just sit in the water. And when a dude would come out, or a dude on the beach, I'd just walk up and go, hey man, can I pray for you for anything? And they'd look at me kind of funny, like, what do you mean? I'm like, hey, they'd go, I'm not religious. And I'd tell them, I'd say, I don't care if you're religious. I didn't ask you about that. I just asked you, do you need prayer for anything? You know? And I would end up praying for some of the craziest people you've ever met. But they had the same issue, was that's where their life was okay. That's where they were open to somebody coming up and going, hey man, I wasn't asking to change their life. I wasn't asking them to give their life to the Lord. I wasn't preaching at them. I just paddle up and go, hey man, how's your day going? Oh dude, it's all effed up and this and that. I go, hey, let me pray for you. And they'd be like, oh, well, yeah, I guess, you know. And it was funny because there was one time probably one of my favorite times was, I mean, I was so excited. Years down the road, we're gonna fast forward for a little bit, but years down the road, my wife Tiffany would become my wife, and she bought me my first custom surfboard, a 10.0 Robert August, custom made, have it tattooed on my arm. But she would buy me my first board. Well, I'd go down there with a couple of my buddies to pick it up, and just happened to be that there was an El Nino rolling through, and I got down there, I got the board from the shop, and I was so excited, and the dude at the shop's like, hey bro, you know what, man, did you read the surf report? I go, no, I'm going no matter what. He goes, bro, it's 20 foot today. And I'm like, what? He goes, oh, you didn't take, because we didn't drive the beach. He goes, yeah. And I went outside, and you could hear the waves crashing, just this roar. And I'm like, sweet. He goes, you gonna go surf? I go, I'm gonna go check it out. So it wasn't 20 foot, it was probably 10 foot. But I get there and I'm excited, man. I got a brand new board. It's a tri-fin. It's got the big fin in the middle and the two little guys on the outside. Concave nose for nose riding, and big old flat nose on it. So I was just excited to get out there. And my buddies, I'm like, okay, let's go surf. And we get there, and dude, the waves are about 3 feet from the bottom of the Huntington Pier at the time. And this is now probably in the 90s. And I'm like, no, I'm going, I'm gonna take care of it. And we get down there, my buddies suit up, we start to paddle out. They're a little hesitant at the time, and but they were gonna go, and we start paddling out, and we get about halfway out. I look back, and they're nowhere to be found. And the waves as we get out are just building and building. Now I'm paddling through the center of the pier to get past these waves. I'm paddling up the pier, and I mean, I'm 3 feet from hitting the bottom of the pier at the time, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. And now I pop out the back of the pier, and I'm still paddling. So nobody's in the water. There's a lifeguard boat off the end of the pier past the waves, and I get out past the waves. I get out past the pier probably 20 yards, and I get out there, and there's this young kid younger than me on a little shortboard, little blonde kid, and he's out there and he looks scared. And all of a sudden there's helicopters over us, and the news copters, they're flying over and everything. And the funny thing is, I had just told my wife that I would stop riding big storm waves. I storm chased, and I told her, I said, I'm done riding big waves. I don't want to die. We just got married, and here I am. I'm the only guy in the water. I'm on my new board. I'm super amped up, never taken a wave on this board. And I get out there, and this poor kid's out there, and he's just like, dude, he's sitting there, and he's like, I'm like, we're paddling over big waves together, and it's just up and down, and lifeguards going, hey, paddle to the boat, paddle to the boat. And there's guys on the pier, the lifeguards on the pier with their buoys, and they're like, dude, go to the boat, you know, don't go, because we don't want to have to fix this. And so we'd sit there for a little bit, and I looked over at the kid, and I mean, he was like 5 feet from me, man. He was scared, but he was just not saying a word. And I go, hey man, I go, I'm gonna take the next wave that comes in. You're gonna be okay. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, bro, if you can't make one of these waves, you need to go to the boat. And he goes, dude, I can't paddle to the boat, man. My friends are watching me. And I'm like, bro, this is no time to be prideful. There's nobody else in the water. Your friends are on the beach. You know, and my friends were on the beach too, because they got scared and they couldn't make the paddle, so they had bailed. And I go, dude, we're the only guys out here. There's no shame in paddling to that boat. And I looked at this kid and I go, I'm gonna say a prayer real quick, you know. And I asked him, I said, do you believe in God? And he goes, I don't know why. He goes, I don't know why. All panicked, like I was asking if he was thinking he was gonna die or something. I go, well, I'm gonna throw down a quick little prayer for us, man, and when I open my eyes, I'm taking the next wave, and I'm gonna go in. He's like, okay, yeah, go ahead, pray. And so I said this prayer, just asked God to keep us safe, and asked him to bless this kid, and prayed that the kid would get closer to God and whatnot. And you know, I opened my eyes. I said amen. He said amen. And when I opened my eyes, I look up and 10 yards farther, there's a wave starting to just, and it's huge. And at this point, I'm like, dude, I dip my tail and start paddling as hard as I can on my new longboard. And I get past that wave, we just get over the top and I do the whole like thing. And I look back and the kid's just poking through his duck dive and he's just coming up and there's another wave. And the look on his face was just sheer terror. And we paddled out over the next wave. And then the third wave in that set, the second wave had curled over the end of the pier. And little would I know that this set of waves that we were on would be the ones that ripped down the Huntington Pier that year. But the next one broke over the pier, and the lifeguards that were on the pier actually had to hold onto the pylons to go under these waves. And man, I got over that second one, and there was the third one. And I just literally turned my board around and dunked the tail and kind of popped up and did a U-turn and used that dunk in the spring in the water and pushing up my board. I ducked down and it kind of popped me into the lip of this wave as it was curling up, or starting to kind of curl up. And I end up going down this wave, man, and I just two strokes, boom, boom, and I'm up. I'm standing up and the lifeguards are shaking their head. They're just sitting on the pier and I'm heading towards these lifeguards. I was on the north side of the pier, and I'm just aimed right at the pier because that's how you have to surf Huntington when it's big like that. And I'm aiming right at the pylons, and I go past the lifeguards and they're shaking their head and they're just grabbing onto the pylons of the rails of this pier, and they're just shaking their head like, dude, please don't go. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, Joe, focus, dude, get to the bottom, make your turn, lay down, and just ride in. You took a wave. No, don't be Mr. I'm going to show everybody how cool I am. It's not the time to do it. This is the time to stay alive. So I go down and I get to the bottom, and just instinctually, at this point I've been surfing for years, and just instinctually my brain just total fried, and I'm aiming at the pier. The wave is curling and I can see the pylons from the pier in the wave. That's how big this wave was. It was in the wave, I could see it. And I look over my right shoulder and I ended up at the bottom of this wave. I wasn't in the curl or anything. I wasn't inside the barrel. And I literally just went out and I ended up doing the most beautiful, just arm dragging, water bouncing off my armpit. It was such a long, powerful turn on this new longboard that I'd never ridden. And I just instinctually, this board just turned, man, and it was like water skiing on a single fin or a single ski. And I hit that thing and I got to the bottom of this wave and I looked over my shoulder, and that's when I saw the pier. And I was like, you're dead. At that point, I just thought, dude, you should have never turned. You're dead. And I went up about 3/4 of the way up this wave, and the whole time I'm thinking, do not pull into that barrel. Do not. My brain is just going, turn around and go home. And I got to the bottom, did that big bottom turn. I get about 3/4 of the way up, and the wave's getting ready to just curl. I'm still going towards the wave, and it decides it's gonna curl, and it just curls up, and it's starting to curl over me, and I literally just did this huge backside turn, and I took off down that wave, man, and I got right in front of the lip, and I laid down and I grabbed my stinking board, and I held onto that thing with everything I had, and I ended up on the beach, and almost ended up on the beach at the cliffs. And if you've ever been to Huntington, you know how far that is. But I rode that sucker, and I got on the beach, and the whole crowd's screaming and yelling, and the news copters are flying over and all this stuff. And it was like my big glory day, right? And I get home and my wife's like, so how's the surf? I'm like, oh, it's okay. I just told her I wasn't gonna surf big waves anymore. Oh, it's okay. She's like, huh? Was it big? And I'm like, that's a weird question. Why is she asking this? And I'm like, yeah, maybe not. She's like, thought I might have seen you on the news. And I was like, oh, caught, busted. And she had made me this super sick board, but it was like, you know, bright blue and turquoise and had this crazy looking squiggly wave on it and a big old cross. So it was very obvious, 10 feet long, that it was me. But that's kind of my glory days as far as wave riding goes. Those were the storm waves I used to chase. But one of the things through life, things that, you know, and the reason I share these stories is there's a lot of times when our life is not necessarily in our hands, and your relationship with God gives you peace to go after things that you normally would be afraid of. And through the next couple of years in this story and through my book and stuff, through the next couple of years, I would use surfing it's just what I was. It was my ministry. It was where God called me to go. And once my wife and I would get married, our first house was not in a most glamorous area. It wasn't a horrible area, but we just happened to we had a meth dealer across the street. We had a guy that was baking meth in his garage, a couple houses up the alley, and then my next door neighbors were part of a Mexican jail gang, pretty active gangbangers at the time, and saw a lot of stuff. So we're gonna get into that. And this is just shortly after Tiffany and I get married. You know, it's one of those things where our whole marriage, she supported me in my ministry and the things that we've done together, whether she's there or not. Everything I do is with her and for her, and now at this point in my life, it's for my kids and my family. But the next couple of chapters, I guess, or whatever they're called, paragraphs in this book, are going to be about when we got married and how things were orchestrated and how things went down. Because a lot of people go, oh man, you guys have this perfect life and you're Christian and you seem so put together, and you need to know that it's not what it appears. Love my wife. She's an amazing woman. She has put up with so much stuff over the years, and we've been through this whole book, she's been with me through it. From the time I became a Christian, it was because of her. And all of the things that we do together, whether she's there or not, she's at home praying for me. She's at home supporting me. She's at home telling me, you gotta go, Joe. The guy needs you, man, go. You know, on days when I didn't want to go, she was there going, no, get up, go. So that's what's coming up in the next video. Hope you guys like this stuff. Hope it encourages you. I know it was a little shift because I wanted to share how I got into surfing and how surfing's blessed me. And little thing here, you know, I did send Robert August a happy birthday thing, and you know, he may or may not see this. If you guys know Robert, I wish you would share this with him, because I know that I wouldn't have been where I was, that he was actually put in my life by God to encourage me. And that time when I started surfing was when I was the most suicidal as a kid. And him giving me that board and him encouraging me to surf and him supporting me instead of just sending me on my way going, bro, you know, your board's not here, see you later, you don't have enough to buy another one. Instead of doing that, him giving from his heart because of his love for surfing and wanting to push the sport, I can't say enough about the dude. I've worshipped the ground he walked on since I started surfing. And I had the privilege of surfing with him one day. He didn't know who I was, and I didn't want to be like, oh, hey, I'm the guy, but we were surfing Doheny, and it was a perfect day. Not too many people in the water, and he paddled out, and it had been 15 years. And since I had last seen him and met him and stuff, and my wife was on the beach, and him and his best friend paddled out, and I was on my original board, and he paddled by me, and he goes, man, that's a classic, you shouldn't be riding that. And I just smiled and said, well, if I got it, I gotta ride it. And he goes, I understand that. And he was on a blue and yellow and white longboard with these stripes, which is his design. And we paddled out, and man, we took a wave, and I dropped in on this wave, and he was kind of paddling, and he looked at me, I go, 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 and he dropped in front of me, and we basically mimicked each other, and we were doing this little dance on the wave. So he would run to the nose, I would run to the nose, he'd do a bottom turn, I'd do a bottom turn, and it was like a little dance that we got to do. One of the most special times in my life as a surfer, and the best memories. Wasn't the most amazing wave in the world, but the experience was amazing. And that was the only wave he took all day. And he said, hey man, thanks, I haven't had a ride like that in a long time. I go, no, I'm honored, thank you for letting me share it with you. He goes, no, thank you for sharing it with me. And he got out of the water, and then his friend paddled up to me, and he was on the beach talking to my wife and stuff, and his buddy comes paddling up, and he took a wave, and we started to walk in, and I noticed Robert was gone, and his buddy goes, hey, that was pretty awesome, man. Like, you don't get to do that very often. And I was like, well, it was pretty special. I love surfing, and I love being there. And he goes, well, that board, he goes, that's a one-of-a-kind board. And I go, yeah, I know. I go, Robert hooked me up with it when I first started surfing and stuff, and I kind of shared a little of the story, and he smiled at me. He goes, so do you know who that was that was just surfing with you? And I was like, no, man. He goes, that was Robert August. And I was like, wow. And I looked, and he's gone. He's already walked to his truck. And I got there, and my wife, I noticed he was talking to my wife on the beach for a little while, and she goes, babe, did you know that was Robert August? And that was one of my favorite waves of the millions of waves that I feel like I've ridden in my life. That is still my favorite experience, just because he's just a real dude. Robert's a real dude. He's a great shaper, but he's one of those guys that just loves the sport. And I would just say, if you ever get to where you can tell Robert, or he sees this, I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm not looking for recognition, but just tell him thank you for me, because I know that he saved my life as a kid. And I know without surfing, I would have been in a really dark place at that point in my life, especially without God. And that board that he gave me, I still have. I'm 54 and I still have it. And I don't ride it anymore because I don't surf anymore. But, if I ever get back up on a board, I will definitely paddle out on it. So you guys have a good day. Please subscribe, write me, let me know what you think. You guys got any surfing pics? If you guys are surfers, I'd love to see it. You're going to learn a little bit more about where surfing takes me in the next video. We're gonna kind of share my differences and basically the times that I go from LA and I'm dealing with gangs and all the different stuff that God has me doing, and then I really start a surfing ministry that would change my life, but it would also change the lives of thousands of people. So look forward to hearing from you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.